Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by UFC Bantamweight Urijah Faber. Urijah, how are you?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Urijah, there's so much I want to talk about today. Obviously, MMAdraft.com, you got a combine coming up in my neck of the woods here in Michigan. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Patino diet. But before we get to that stuff, I want to talk about your upcoming fight, UFC 169, February 1st, a rematch against Renan Barão. Take me back to when you got the call from Dana White saying that Dominick Cruz was injured and they were looking for a replacement and they offered you the fight. Take me back. How did this all come together?
Yeah, I actually was in a little meeting and I got a call from Dana White, so I picked up the phone and he asked me if I'd be willing to fight in 3.5 weeks, and I just said, yeah. This is a world where you never know when your opportunity is going to come and what can happen, so I'm healthy and feeling good and might as well take a title shot. Mm-hmm. No reason.
Mm-hmm. Physically, what exactly were you doing training-wise? Because I know the guys at Team Alpha Male, you guys never get out of shape because there's so many guys in the gym that are fighting, whether it be in the UFC, whether it be on regional shows. Everyone in the gym is usually very active. So what exactly were you doing training-wise when you got the call from Dana White?
Well, I actually was about 2 weeks out of my about 2 weeks out from my last fight. So, I went to a whole training camp for Michael McDonald, and I had the fight with him, which is a fairly quick fight. And, I went to Mexico for a week and was hanging out in the ocean and enjoying the sun. And then I went to North Carolina and was visiting my family there. So I didn't really do too much training aside from just, jumping in the water and eating good. So I felt a lot nice and healed up, and 3.5 weeks seemed like a realistic time for me to get ready.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm just curious, were you able to enjoy the holidays? Because I'm sure after your fight against Michael McDonald, you thought that you were going to have all this time off and you were going to be able to kick back and relax, but then this fight offer just kind of fell right into your lap and you accepted the fight. So I'm just curious, how was your holiday season?
They're good. I actually was in Mexico, like I said, till Christmas Eve, and then I came home for Christmas, and then I went to North Carolina the next day and a half after that. So they weren't traditional. They weren't traditional New Year's for me. I was, out of my element in the sun and on Christmas Eve, and then in North Carolina on the beach on New Year's. So it was a good little time for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, considering that you're stepping up on short notice, and this is a very big fight with a title on the line, had you not fought against Barão in the past, would you have not taken this fight, considering that it's on short notice, or was it just an offer that you couldn't refuse and it's a big opportunity, you got to jump on it when you can? Considering that you fought Barão in the past, did it make the decision to step into this fight easier because you have that history with Barão?
So I'm kind of a guy that's always ready and believe that I can fight anyone at any time. So I just take that mentality, and that was what made me make that decision, which was seize an opportunity instead of sit around and wait. It's just kind of my mentality I've always had.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm sure after you fought Barão at UFC 149, you went back and watched the fight, but this time around, have you gone back and watched the fight to prepare for him for the rematch?
I actually watched it last night, and I have to watch it on mute because I don't like listening to the commentary. They always make things out to be so dramatic. Like, I've been fighting 11 years. I fought some of the best guys in the world, and they're oohing and on over a couple of leg kicks. It wasn't like... so I don't like listening to that, but it was a very close fight, the last fight with him. The media kind of says that it wasn't, but the difference was just a couple of punches landed. No one was hurt in the fight. There was no big takedowns. It was just kind of a back and forth, stand-up game, and he landed a couple more punches than I did, and that was it. Mm-hmm. And he looked a little bit more in control of the pace and the distance in the fight. And so that I think gave him the edge, but it was a very close fight. And on top of that, he caught me with a really good knee 2 minutes into the first round and broke my rib. And you couldn't tell, of course, watching the fight, but that didn't help my cause either.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. when you fought against Renan Barão at UFC 149, that was your only fight of 2012, and before that you were on a 9-month layoff, mostly because of the Ultimate Fighter, so 2012 you were only able to get in that one fight against Barão. Now you've been fighting very actively, very consistently, 4 fights in 2013. How much will that help you in this fight? How much is that a benefit to you, being active and fighting consistently? How much of a difference will that make in the fight, do you think?
I think it should help a lot, but, we'll find out. Like I said, I don't ever make excuses for fights. I always feel like I'm going to be able to put my best foot forward. But you can see this year being active has been good for me, so I'm coming off of a lot of positive energy and momentum. And I think that's going to help.
Mm-hmm. In 2013, you fought against Michael McDonald, Yuri Alcantara, Scott Jorgensen, and Ivan Menjivar. And Renan Barão fought against 2 guys that you've beaten as well. He fought against Michael McDonald and Eddie Wineland. So I'm just curious, who do you think's looked better since you guys fought at UFC 149?
I think we both looked pretty good, man, in our own rights, I know he also fought Scotty Jorgensen. That's another common opponent.
Right.
And that was a tough fight for him as well. I mean, we've looked comfortable, and he's a world champion right now, one of the longest win streaks in the sport. And I'm one of the longest reigning, champions / contenders in the sport. 11 years now, so it's going to be a great fight, man. I'm looking to get the W for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, people have criticized you for getting so many title shots and fighting in all these number 1 contender fights and stuff along those lines. I don't really know why people are doing that. It's not your decision if and when you get a title shot. It's up to the UFC, so I don't really know why people are complaining about it. And now maybe it's because people like complaining in this sport a lot. We hear a lot of ridiculous complaints, and you getting title shots is one of these ridiculous complaints, because if you looked at what you've done over the course of 2013, you definitely deserve this title shot this time around. So I don't know why people are complaining. But now another criticism I see of you online from fans is when you're in these title shots, you change the way you fight. You don't fight like the guy who fights before he gets the title shot, where you're mixing it up all the time. When you get into these title fights, you're basically only striking. You're not mixing it up. You're not striking when you should be wrestling. You're not wrestling when you should be striking. You're not going for a lot of submissions. A lot of people have criticized you on just changing up how you fight once you get into a title fight. So I'm just curious, have you heard this criticism about yourself? And if so, have your coaches or has anyone told this to you? Has anyone seen this? Is this something that you've heard before in the past?
I haven't. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's all sorts of analysts in this sport that
right.
do whatever they want, but I've been fighting the top guys in 2 divisions my entire career, in 145 and 135. So my 3rd fight in this sport was for a title before California had legalized MMA, and I was fighting on Indian reservations. And, I was fighting at 145 pounds because there was no 135-pound weight class for me. There wasn't even a 45-pound weight class. So I became a world champion at 145 out of necessity to compete. It wasn't because I wanted to. I was a 132-pound fighter, a wrestler all through college. So, and then people talk about wins and losses. When you're fighting, I mean, I've had 6 losses, 2 to Mike Brown, and then the rest to world champions, minus Tyson Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're fighting the top guys, the littlest things count. And especially when you're, at a higher weight, sometimes a weight advantage can count, an injury in a fight. There's all sorts of little things that will or not go your way. And I was a world champion for 3 years. I've been a top contender my entire career. So, there's not much you can say when you dissect my fights other than that I'm one of the best, and I have been for a long time. So I'm looking to get the belt and go out there and fight with everything that I have and put it all on the line.
You've been a champion of many organizations, ranging from WEC to King of the Cage and a bunch of the Gladiator Challenge, those shows like that. You've had the belt. You've been the king of the featherweight division in WEC. You were the longtime champion there. But where does the fact that in all the accomplishments that you've had, I know you're a guy who doesn't really like to look back on the past, but you kind of like to live in the moment and work towards the future. But where does the fact that you're still a contender, you've been fighting for a very long time and you're at the top of your game right now, you're getting better and better every day, how proud of the fact that you are of that? Because Chris Lieben, he's a year younger than you and he just retired. He had many losses in a row, but you're getting better, you're fighting for a title coming up on February 1st, where does that rank, as an accomplishment for you that you're still at the top of your game?
I'm pretty proud of it, and I've had some great role models, guys that have had really prolonged careers and continue to get better. Guys like Randy Couture and Vitor Belfort and Chuck Liddell and Dan Henderson. These guys have stayed. Anderson Silva. These are all guys that have stayed at the top of their game for long careers, and it's a testament to living a super healthy lifestyle and staying focused and having an open mind to learn. And I feel real fortunate to be in the position I'm in, and look forward to continuing this progression as a fighter until I'm ready to retire, and I'm not sure when that is.
Now, I wanted to change gears on you from your title fight at UFC 169. I'm sure you've been asked a ton of questions and will be asked a ton of questions from now until the fight. So I wanted to change things up on you and talk about MMAdraft.com. I'm just curious, a lot of people out there might have not heard about this before, or if they have heard about it, they don't really know too much about it. So I'm just curious, could you explain to the people out there who aren't that familiar with MMAdraft.com, what exactly is this service? What exactly is this website? What exactly is this business?
So MMA Draft is basically an opportunity for the amateurs to get an edge and understand our sport a little bit more. Our sport is so new that the matrix for the progression into the sport isn't really there. You see a lot of amateur wrestlers get involved, and now there's a ton of gyms around where kids can sign up and start learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing and boxing and everything everything together. So it's changing, and we're here to help the change and really get some notoriety for these guys. I feel like it's so hard to get discovered. It's so hard to get an edge in this sport, and MMA Draft, the website that gives all sorts of helpful hints on navigating through the MMA lifestyle, how to make the right choices, how to train the right things, and then also a platform for kids to be seen. So we've done MMA Draft Combine, the first ever Combine, where we do standardized testing just like the MLB and the NFL and the NBA and all the top sports have their combines where they're measuring the athleticism of their athletes and their skill level. And so we've built a program that does that for mixed martial arts, and we had our first one this last year at the UFC Expo. It's a pretty cool thing, man, and it's really going to help progress the sport as the sport grows. The amateur sport is getting increasingly more in depth, so we're here to help.
Now, what exactly is your role with MMAdraft.com? Are you the owner? Are you a spokesman? Could you explain exactly what your role in the company is?
So Phil Davis and I actually came up with this concept years ago,
right,
and have been developing it. So he and I are partners, and then we have another partner, Will Farah, who's the owner of Throwdown Fights in Utah, and also sponsors a lot of the fighters in the UFC, and really has a passion for the sport. So the three of us are the owners, and we're just basically been finding creative ways to give these kids an edge and come up with the concepts, and have a team of people that help run the business. But I'm the founder.
Okay. And how did you and Phil Davis link up? Because a lot of people have been scratching their head on that, because a lot of people think that, since he trains at Alliance, what is he doing hanging around with you? Because I know, people talk because, Dominic Cruz is your rival, but that's kind of different because you and Dominic Cruz have a weird relationship. You're rivals, but you don't exactly hate each other. But just curious, how did you and Phil Davis get together?
It was actually, and I don't ever let a conflict with one individual span, their whole network of folks. And I actually like Phil Davis quite a bit. He and I are a lot alike the way we think. And the first time we met, we kind of just hit it off, and we're talking about opportunities in the sport and stuff like that. And came up with this concept. And, we shook hands probably about 30 minutes in the conversation and decided to go up and hit it off on, start working on this project, because it was something that we saw would help a lot of the wrestlers who are peers and a lot of the up-and-coming amateurs to get a jump start on getting paid in this sport, or at least getting some recognition and building a brand for themselves. So, I don't ever let somebody else's bad attitude and negativity get in the way of a good time or success. So, that's kind of how that went.
Now, what exactly spawned this idea? Was it something, looking at your past, was it something that you took from how you came up in the sport? Because you didn't have the benefit of an amateur career. You went pro right off the bat. Was it that? Was it something because you have a lot of guys in your gym? Was it something you were seeing that was happening to the young up-and-coming amateur guys? What exactly started this whole idea for MMAdraft.com?
Well, it's just basically, there's a website called Rivals.com, which covers college sports, and there's a website called MaxPreps.com, and both of those websites are a huge aid for amateur athletes, and there's a whole subculture there, and there already is a huge subculture in the amateur side of mixed martial arts. There's, governing bodies, and there's organizations that are feeders, whether it be the Camo or Nawa or there's a bunch of different amateur leagues that push into the amateur world, and no one's really put something together that combines everything. And so we wanted to be the first guys to do that, the first guys to help these amateurs figure out a way in which they can get a head start. And, I feel like, Phil and I have the means to do it. Aside from being collegiate wrestlers and trained proficiently in every other aspect of the sport, we've got all these relationships at the highest level with with professional fighters to the amateur wrestling world, to the amateur jiu-jitsu world, and I felt like we'd be guys that could really help out and make a difference. So that's kind of where we started.
Some of the services that you just named, Rivals, Max Preps, all those websites, they have certain criteria they're looking for when they're evaluating their talent. When you guys at MMA Draft evaluate the talent, what are you looking for? What are some of these guys being graded on?
Well, when we do our combines, we're actually looking at some standardized testing in athleticism. So a lot of the shuttle runs and high jump and things that are used in every combine. We also have some mixed martial arts specific stuff. And when a person creates their profile on the website, they get a spelled out self-ranking, and then they can get verified. So they can go on there and say, okay, well, what's my wrestling rank? And the wrestling criteria will say, hey, okay, if you've been a part of the team, then you're a 1 to a 3. If you wrestled 10 matches and you're a 3 to a 6. If you're a national champion, if you're a league champion, there's different criteria, so a guy can get a realistic idea of where he sits as a prospect in each of these different disciplines. And then we have results. We try to find results, and we try to find guys that are going to be future stars in our sport, and kind of give them a platform. It's been pretty cool.
Who evaluates the talent?
At the combine, we had a whole handful of current professional fighters and coaches in the sport. We had a lot of the guys from Elevated out in Utah and from Phil Davis's camp out in San Diego, and from our team Alpha Male. In addition to a lot of the coaching that takes up the space there, and we've had a lot of people that want to get involved. This sport is a sport where people get involved because they love it. It's not necessarily a huge money-making thing. It's a way for people to be part of something that they love. And so the people that got involved came from far and wide. We had a sports psychologist, and we had physical therapists, and we had stand-up coaches and wrestling coaches, and just a whole staff of guys that check these young prospects out.
You were supposed to have a combine in Waterford, Michigan last weekend, but since you have this fight against Renan Barão coming up on February 1st, you had to cancel the combine. Just curious, do we have a new date on when the combine is going to take place?
It's showing the exact date. I think it's mid-February, and I'll have to double-check on the exact date. But, I wanted to be out there and be part of this thing and help run it. I think, one of the coolest parts about these combines is these young athletes getting an opportunity to showcase their skill in front of some of the fighters that they've seen on TV, and so it's going to be a pretty cool gig. I think February 15th might be the date, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'll have to double check and get that back to you.
Okay, sounds good. The first MMA Draft Combine took place at the UFC Fan Expo in Las Vegas. This will be the second one, and this one takes place in Waterford, Michigan. I'm just curious, why have you decided to bring the Combine to Michigan? Is it because of the relationship that you have with some people in Michigan? Darren Cruikshank, he's a Michigan-based fighter. He was one of the guys you coached on The Ultimate Fighter. Is it because of Dr. Frank Patino? He's a Michigan-based guy, and Patino diet is the official diet of Team Alpha Male. Is it because of those reasons, or is it because the MMA circuit for the amateur side of things in Michigan is very strong? Could you explain why you decided to bring the combine to Michigan?
It was actually one of the guys who trains with us from Michigan, Vince Murdoch,
right?
Was kind of pushing for it, and one of the reasons why we all thought it was a great idea is because Michigan has one of the most in-depth amateur systems in the nation. If you look at the guys that are coming out of Michigan, by the time they turn pro, a lot of them have had in the teens into the 20s of amateur fights, and they're tough and talented. So it's a good talent pool to go and look at, and also Michigan is in a place like California where the eyes are out scouting for talent all the time. It's kind of a place where you could use an extra look. So we want to discover some real talent and get some people exposed to what we're trying to do, and then start a place that has a strong amateur group of fighters.
What's the criteria for being a part of a combine?
Well, there's an age criteria. I think it's 16 to 32, and then we have to just okay an application. And really, in the fight game, belief in yourself is probably one of the biggest determining factors on success. Either you do believe and you don't. So if somebody believes they belong, and then they can show that they've been working towards it, whether they've been competing as a jiu-jitsu player or as a collegiate wrestler or have had some amateur fights, we'll take a look and make sure that they're who they say they are, and they're not wasting everyone's time. But it's a very personal thing, believing that you're worthy, and we don't ever turn folks down and say, hey, you don't have potential to be a champion, but we are going to double check and make sure they are who they say they are.
Now, you guys are offering like a grand prize, I guess you could say, or you're allowing whoever performs the best or wins the competition. I don't know what you want to call it, but whoever does great at the combine will have the opportunity to train either with Phil Davis and an alliance or with you and Team Alpha Male. How will that be determined? And also, will you be taking more than one person if more than one person is deserving?
We definitely be willing to take more than one person. There's going to be different criteria, like you said. There'll be an MMA-based criteria and an athletic-based criteria. Mm-hmm. So we do a combination of the two to kind of find out who the top prospect is. And, when you're trying to give some sort of incentive, a lot of times the top guys in the world are looking for that edge, and to be able to come and train at one of the top facilities in the nation or the world is a big opportunity. So we're going to be doing that. Also offering for a chance to go out and train in Utah at the Pit Elevated, and the real opportunity for these guys is not just to go get some good training, but to continue to network. That's one of the things that is part of the helpful hints of the website is, building your own brand and building your own relationships and getting outside and seeing what all is out there is important. So, it's just kind of another reward for somebody that's worked hard.
Mm-hmm. The day after the combine, you and Phil Davis are going to be putting on a seminar. I'm just curious, is this seminar open to the public, or is it just for the people who competed at the combine? And also, what are some things that you guys are going to be teaching at the seminar?
I got to get the details of it. I'm not even 100% sure.
Okay.
I said I'd do it, and I'll be there to coach up and meet all the folks and show them some good news, and I'll get you guys the details of that. I would imagine that it's open for folks to come, and it would be given some sort of special opportunity for the guys that compete in the combine. I'll be showing some of my favorite moves, so a little bit of stand-up and serious stand-up, and then some really great catch wrestling, jiu-jitsu submission type stuff that I do that's pretty unique to me. And then Phil will be doing the same thing on his favorite stuff. So just some of our favorite moves and a couple of the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. Besides you and Phil Davis, who are some other pro guys, some other UFC guys, some other guys that are going to be helping you out at this combine besides you and Phil? Are there going to be any other pro guys that people can come and meet and learn from at the seminar?
Yeah, we'll have quite a few helpers out there that are all different levels. I'm not 100% sure because in our sport it's kind of a real malleable schedule. Mm-hmm. So right. Guys may have a fight coming up, they may not, but we're definitely going to be bringing out more professional fighters to come help with the process.
Mm-hmm. Changing gears again, I want to talk about Patino Diet. That's the official diet of Team Alpha Male, and Frank Patino has been working with you and your team with your diet. I'm just curious, when and how did this relationship start? When did you start working with Dr. Patino?
A lot's in the name. The doctor, the guy knows his stuff, and I've had a lot of time to sit one-on-one with Dr. Patino, and he's got a great book as well. So I'm just all about knowledge. I mean, it's one thing to think you're eating healthy and have no clue. It's another thing to really understand the process. And I'm all about education. So, aside from what I've learned from Dr. Patino, I read books and I went to school as well. And I'm a guy that takes that part of my life seriously. So, to have another guy that is an expert there on my side, I'm always game for that.
Mm-hmm. Just curious, what does your diet look like, and how much different is it now that you're working with Dr. Patino than it was when you were working on your own?
It's not that much different. I was doing a lot of the right things, and I'm just a little bit more aware of like the glycemic index and stuff like that. As far as my diet, I haven't really had to change it. I've been fortunate to have parents that are really really into the health food and understanding about a healthy lifestyle. So I don't do too much different.
Mm-hmm. Who from the team has made the biggest change in their diet? Anybody come to mind?
Joseph just made a big change in his diet right after this fight. He put on about 20 some odd pounds, and he's calling himself Fat Joe. But I know Vince Murdoch, who's one of our young up and comers, has done a lot of changing with his diet and a lot of education, and we've seen a difference in him for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Earlier you mentioned that your diet, you were on a good track. You weren't doing too many things wrong. Just curious, what was something that Dr. Patino changed about your diet? Was there one thing in particular that he's like, this needs to go?
No, I don't think that Dr. Patino's into telling you exactly what to eat and what not to eat. Mm-hmm. If you take a look at the book and see kind of the theories behind it, mm-hmm. That's kind of the matrix and things that help the folks, and it's understanding when you're resting, what your body's using, a bunch of stuff that doesn't have to do like put this in your mouth, put that in your mouth. And,
right.
That's a real individual thing.
Mm-hmm. Uriah, how closely does Dr. Patino work with you? Because I know Mike Dolce, when he works with a fighter, he's around them all the time. He cooks them meals. He's with them through the whole process of a weight cut. He works hand in hand with his athletes. Does Dr. Patino, does he do the same thing? Is he around you all the time? Does he help you out with a weight cut and everything like that? How closely do you work with him?
I've never used Dolce, so I don't know exactly what he does.
Right.
I know that Dwayne Bang Ludwig has used Dolce, and I think Dolce's big thing is manipulating the end to make the weight, like water loading and sodium loading and things like that to kind of keep the system at the end there. In addition to having a healthy diet, and I know that a couple guys have used Dolce as well. We've got like an open line with Dr. Patino. So when we want to ask him something, we just get on the horn and he helps us out. And like I said, I'm not a guy that has ever really had to make a big, huge life change. I just continue to get educated, just like the sport of MMA. Keep learning pieces of information that help me be the best.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Just curious, like in the past, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, what was your diet looking like then? Because now you're fighting in 135, your natural weight class, but in the past you fought at 155, you fought at 145. What was your diet looking like back then?
I was doing the same exact stuff, and I weighed about the same. So when I fought Jose Aldo, I was probably about 153 or 54 in the cage, mm-hmm. and when I fight Barao, I'll probably be about 152, 153 in the cage. So the only thing that really is the big difference is that the weight cut really, really sucks at 135. It's pretty miserable. So, that's kind of the big difference.
Mm-hmm. Has the refueling part of the weight cut, has that changed at all now that you're working with Dr. Patino, or are you still doing the same thing after you weigh in?
It's about the same. I mean, it's different for me every time because there's a different process, and I don't like to eat the same things over and over again. When you do that, it's like becoming a distance runner versus a guy that does pull-ups all day versus a guy that's a mixed martial artist. I like to keep it up and just to mix it up so that my body doesn't get in a routine. But my basic diet stays the same, but it's all different foods.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Last question, Uriah. A couple of years back, after you fought Dominic Cruz the second time, it was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks out from that fight. I heard you on Bruce Buffer's radio show, and at the end of the interview you had with him, you asked him if he could make like a voice message recording of him announcing you as the champion, like something for visualization purposes. I'm just curious, did he make that recording for you? And how many times have you listened to it?
I don't know if we ever did that.
Really?
We may have. I'd have to ask him again, and I don't know, but I know that Joe Martinez is my answer machine.
Really?
Yeah, some people call me. It's Joe Martinez on there screaming it up.
Well, I'm sure you're hoping and planning on him doing the live version for you. You don't have to have a recording after February 1st, so I know you're hoping that.
All right, man. Well, thanks for the interview. I think you set a record.
Oh, did I?
That was a 42-minute interview, probably the longest interview that I've had coming up to a big fight like this. So, Michigan.
Yeah.
Representing.
Yep, definitely. I hope I entertained you a little.
It's all good, yeah. I'm sitting here in the sun enjoying it, so it's all good. Well, cool, man. We'll see you out there at the Combine.
Okay, definitely. I'll say what's up, and I appreciate your time, and best of luck coming up on February 1st against Renan Barão.
Thank you.